I felt the freezing marble against my cheek as my sister stepped over my bleeding body, arm in arm with the man who had promised me forever. As my vision faded, I swore I'd destroy them both. Then I gasped for air, opening my eyes to exactly 5 years ago. Death doesn't come with a blinding white light. It comes with the suffocating scent of copper, the chilling echo of mocking laughter, and the agonizing realization that your entire life was a carefully orchestrated lie. In my previous life, I died on the floor of a penthouse suite at the St. Regis, clutching a fatal stab wound while my husband, Liam Caldwell, kissed my sister, Isabella. I had spent my entire life trying to be the perfect daughter, the perfect fiancée, the perfect wife. And what did it get me? A knife in the ribs and the revelation that Isabella had orchestrated every single misfortune in my life, right down to my marriage to Liam, a man she had discarded when she realized he couldn't offer her the billionaire status she craved. But fate is a funny thing. When my eyes snapped open, I wasn't dead. I was sitting upright in my canopy bed, gasping, my hands frantically searching my ribs for a wound that didn't exist. The air smelled of expensive lavender linen spray, not blood. I looked at the illuminated screen of my phone resting on the nightstand. October 14th. My breath hitched. It was exactly 5 years ago, the day of the Sterling Foundation Gala. A cold, sharp clarity washed over me. This was the exact night my life had spiraled into hell. In my past life, this was the night Isabella, my father's illegitimate daughter, who had been brought into our home playing the fragile, traumatized victim, had set her sights on Nathaniel Sterling. Nathaniel was the heir to the Sterling Empire, a man rumored to be as ruthless in the boardroom as he was untouchable in his private life. He was supposed to be my introduction to society, a potential match arranged through quiet whispers between our fathers. But 5 years ago, Isabella had sabotaged me. She had sneaked into my room, poured bleach over my custom white silk gown, and left me frantically trying to salvage my appearance. While I was sobbing in my room, Isabella had gone to the gala, tripped into Nathaniel's arms, and played the tearful, innocent sister who was so worried about my sudden illness. That night, she stole my future, and when I finally arrived, utterly humiliated in a borrowed, ill-fitting dress, Liam Caldwell had been there to offer me his coat and a sympathetic smile, the beginning of the trap that would eventually kill me. Not this time. I threw off the covers, my heart pounding with a dangerous, exhilarating rhythm. I walked over to my closet and opened the double doors. There it hung, the delicate, innocent white gown my mother had chosen for me. I reached out and touched the fabric. It was completely intact. Isabella hadn't struck yet. A dark smile curved my lips. I grabbed a pair of sharp fabric scissors from my vanity. With one swift, vicious motion, I slashed the white silk right down the middle, destroying it myself. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. I didn't need the white dress. 2 days ago, driven by a sudden urge I hadn't understood at the time, I had purchased something else entirely. Hidden in the back of my closet was a garment bag holding a masterpiece I had found at an exclusive boutique off Fifth Avenue. It was a deep, predatory crimson. It wasn't the dress of a compliant, obedient daughter. It was the dress of a woman who was about to burn her old life to the ground. Hours later, a soft, tentative knock echoed through my bedroom door. "Chloe?" Isabella's voice was sickeningly sweet, dripping with that fake innocence that had fooled our parents for years. "Are you getting ready? The cars are arriving soon." I opened the door just a fraction, keeping the lights dim. "I'll be down in a moment, Izzy. I'm just having a slight wardrobe issue." I saw the flicker of triumphant malice in her wide, doe-like eyes before she quickly masked it with exaggerated concern. "Oh no, is everything okay? Do you need me to come in and help?" "No," I said, my voice smooth and eerily calm. "I have it completely under control. Go on ahead with Mom and Dad. I'll take the second car." "Are you sure?" she pouted, already turning away. I'd hate to make an entrance without my big sister. "You'd love nothing more," I thought. "I'm sure. See you there?" I closed the door and locked it. I walked over to the full-length mirror. The woman staring back at me was a stranger to the girl who had died on that penthouse floor. My makeup was sharp, my red lips a stark contrast to my pale skin, and my hair cascaded over my shoulders in dark, deliberate waves. I stepped into the crimson gown. It fit like a second skin, clinging to my curves before falling into a dramatic, sweeping train. I looked dangerous. I looked alive. "Let's see you try to steal my life this time, Isabella," I whispered to the empty room. The Waldorf Astoria Grand Ballroom was a sea of glittering diamonds, sharp tuxedos, and calculated smiles. The air buzzed with the low hum of old money and new schemes. As I stepped out of my town car and handed my invitation to the attendant, I felt a familiar wave of anxiety try to rise in my chest. I forcefully pushed it down. I was a ghost walking among the living. I had nothing left to fear. I entered the ballroom just in time to see the tableau unfold exactly as I remembered, yet entirely different. Isabella was standing near the grand staircase, dressed in a pale pink chiffon gown that made her look like a delicate porcelain doll. She was holding a flute of champagne, her eyes darting around the room, waiting for her prey. And there he was, Nathaniel Sterling. He stood near the center of the room, a towering figure of imposing authority. Even in a room full of powerful billionaires, Nathaniel commanded the space effortlessly. He had sharp, aristocratic features, piercing dark eyes that seemed to strip away pretenses, and an aura of cold detachment. In my past life, I had been intimidated by him. I had thought he was simply out of my league, an ice king who had somehow been thawed by Isabella's fake warmth. I watched from the shadows of the arched entryway as Isabella initiated her plan. As Nathaniel turned to walk toward the terrace, Isabella stepped directly into his path. I saw her ankle roll a perfectly executed fake trip. She let out a soft gasp, her champagne glass tilting, ready to spill its contents over his expensive tuxedo jacket so she could frantically apologize and touch his chest. But Nathaniel didn't reach out to catch her. Instead, with a reflex that seemed almost preternaturally fast, he took a calculated step backward. Isabella, expecting to be caught, lost her balance completely. She crashed onto the polished marble floor with a highly undignified thud, her champagne shattering and splashing all over her own pale pink dress. A stunned silence rippled through the immediate crowd. Isabella sat on the floor, her face flushed with genuine humiliation and shock. She looked up at Nathaniel, her eyes welling with real tears this time. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Sterling." I lost my footing. Nathaniel looked down at her. His expression didn't change. There was no pity, no amusement, just a chilling, absolute apathy. "Watch your step," he said, his voice a low, gravelly baritone that sent a shiver down my spine. He didn't offer her a hand. He simply stepped around her as if she were a piece of discarded furniture. I couldn't help it. A soft, dark laugh escaped my lips. The sound was barely louder than a whisper, yet Nathaniel stopped dead in his tracks. In a room of 400 people, his head snapped toward the entryway, his dark, penetrating eyes locked onto mine. For a second, the entire ballroom seemed to vanish. The chatter, the music, the clinking of glasses, it all faded into white noise. There was only the heavy, magnetic pull of his stare. I didn't look away. I held my ground, standing tall in my crimson dress, a stark contrast to the sea of pastels and blacks around me. Nathaniel changed his trajectory. He ignored the murmuring crowd, ignored Isabella, who was still being helped off the floor by a waiter, and walked directly toward me. With every step he took, the air between us seemed to thicken. "Chloe Kensington," he said, as he stopped mere inches from me. He was so close I could smell the bergamot and cedarwood of his cologne. "Mr. Sterling," I replied, keeping my chin high. "You have quick reflexes." His eyes dropped briefly to my lips before rising back to meet my gaze. There was something in his eyes, a dark, intense hunger that I had never seen before. It wasn't the aloof detachment I remembered from my past life. It was a suffocating, predatory focus. "I have an aversion to things that fall into my lap on purpose," he murmured, his voice pitched perfectly so only I could hear. "Unlike you, you look like you don't intend to fall for anyone." My breath hitched. "I prefer to stand on my own 2 feet. And in red, no less," he noted, his gaze sweeping over my gown. A strange, possessive smirk touched the corner of his mouth. I must admit, I was expecting white tonight. The innocent, obedient daughter. but this is a revelation. I've been waiting for you to wear red, Chloe. My heart hammered against my ribs. Waiting for me? How could he know about the white dress? Only Isabella and my mother knew about it. You seem to know a lot about my wardrobe, Mr. Sterling, I said, masking my shock with a cool smile. I know a lot of things about you, he replied, taking a half step closer, completely invading my personal space. The intensity radiating from him was intoxicating and terrifying. I know that you take your coffee black when your mother isn't looking. I know that you read financial ledgers for fun. And I know that your sister has a habit of taking things that belong to you. He slowly raised a hand, his knuckles lightly brushing against the bare skin of my shoulder. A jolt of electricity shot through me. But she won't take this, Nathaniel whispered fiercely, his eyes blazing with an obsession I couldn't comprehend. She can play her little games with the rest of the world. But you, Chloe, you have always been mine. Just then, Isabella limped over, her dress stained, her face a mask of poorly concealed fury. Chloe, she gasped, trying to wedge herself between us. Where have you been? And what are you wearing? Mom is going to be furious. She turned her doe eyes back to Nathaniel. I'm so sorry about my sister, Mr. Sterling. She's a bit of a rebel. Nathaniel didn't even look at her. His eyes remained fixed on my face, burning with a territorial fire. Isabella, Nathaniel said coldly, still not breaking eye contact with me. I believe your dress is ruined. You should leave before you embarrass yourself further. I am busy speaking with my future wife. The world stopped. Isabella choked on a gasp, her face draining of all color. I stood completely frozen, staring into the eyes of a man I thought I never knew, realizing that the timeline hadn't just changed, it had cracked wide open. Isabella thought she was the hunter, but she had no idea that Nathaniel Sterling had been waiting in the shadows all along, and his obsession with me was far more dangerous than anything she could ever scheme. My future wife. The words hung in the grand ballroom's heavy air like the final, ringing note of a death knell. The collective gasp from the surrounding elite was audible. Isabella's mouth opened and closed like a suffocating fish, the pale pink of her ruined chiffon dress matching the sudden, sickly pallor of her skin. She looked to me, then to Nathaniel, searching for the punchline of a cruel joke. But Nathaniel Sterling didn't make jokes. My parents, Arthur and Genevieve Kensington, broke through the perimeter of stunned onlookers. My mother's eyes instantly darted to my crimson dress, her lips thinning in disapproval, before she registered the sheer magnitude of the man holding my gaze. Mr. Sterling, my father said, his voice laced with the nervous deference of a millionaire addressing a billionaire. We weren't aware that you and Chloe were formally acquainted. Nathaniel finally tore his eyes from mine to look at my father. The temperature in the room seemed to plummet. There are many things you are unaware of regarding your eldest daughter, Arthur. Her exquisite taste in evening wear, for one. Her unparalleled intellect, for another. And, effectively, immediately, her unavailability. He didn't ask for my hand, he stated a fact. It was a terrifying, intoxicating display of absolute power. Before my father could stammer a reply, a smooth, agonizingly familiar voice cut through the tension. Is everything all right here? The world tilted on its axis. My blood turned to ice water in my veins. Liam Caldwell. He stepped into the light, dressed in a sharp, midnight blue tuxedo, his golden boy smile firmly in place. In my previous life, this was the moment he had offered me his coat, the moment I thought I had found a savior in a sea of vipers. Looking at him now, all I felt was the phantom, tearing pain of a 6-inch serrated blade sliding between my ribs. I could smell the copper of my own blood. I could hear his mocking laughter as I died. My hands began to tremble. I tried to mask it, to clench my fists into the folds of my red silk gown, but the visceral trauma of my murder was too fresh. Suddenly, a heavy, warm presence enveloped my side. Nathaniel stepped closer, his broad shoulder subtly overlapping mine, forming an impenetrable human shield between me and Liam. Without looking down, Nathaniel's large hand found mine, his long fingers threading through mine and squeezing with a grounding, anchoring force. The trembling stopped. "We are perfectly fine, Caldwell," Nathaniel said, his gravelly voice dropping to a lethal frequency. Liam's confident smile faltered for a fraction of a second. Nathaniel, I didn't realize you were monopolizing the Kensington sisters tonight. I merely saw Chloe looking a bit overwhelmed. He reached out a hand, playing the concerned gentleman. Liam Caldwell. I don't believe we've been formally introduced in the boardroom. Nathaniel looked at Liam's outstretched hand as if it were coated in a contagious disease. He didn't take it. I know exactly who you are, Liam, Nathaniel said softly. Too softly. I also know about the aggressive, heavily leveraged loans you recently secured through a shell company in the Caymans. Crestview Holdings, managed by a Mr. Thomas G. Weaver. If I recall the private filings correctly, the ones keeping your father's failing real estate firm afloat. Liam's outstretched hand dropped as if he had been burned. The Golden Boy facade shattered, revealing the panicked, hollow fraud underneath. His eyes darted around, terrified that the surrounding aristocrats had heard the exposure of his impending bankruptcy. I have no idea what you're talking about, Liam choked out, taking a swift step back. I'm sure you don't, Nathaniel replied, dismissing him entirely. He turned his devastating focus back to me. The air in here has suddenly become toxic. Walk with me, Chloe. It wasn't a request. But for the first time since waking up in my own bed 5 years in the past, I felt entirely safe. I let him lead me away, leaving my stunned parents, a ruined Liam, and a weeping Isabella in our wake. Minutes later, I was sitting in the back of Nathaniel's custom, bulletproof Maybach. The tinted windows shut out the flashing lights of the paparazzi, swarming the Waldorf Astoria's exit. The silence inside the cabin was heavy, charged with a magnetic tension that made it hard to breathe. You're trembling again, Nathaniel noted, pouring 2 glasses of scotch from the car's crystal decanter. He handed one to me. Our fingers brushed, and I felt that same electric jolt. It's just the adrenaline, I lied, taking a long, burning sip. I looked at the man beside me. He was a predator, yes, but tonight he was my predator. How did you know about the dress, Nathaniel? How do you know about Liam's shell companies? And why did you declare me your future wife in front of half of Manhattan's elite? Nathaniel slowly unbuttoned his suit jacket and leaned back against the leather. He didn't look away from me. I told you, Chloe, I have an aversion to things falling into my lap. I prefer to hunt. He reached into the console and pulled out an iPad, tapping the screen before handing it to me. I own the private security firm Aegis Global that monitors the Kensington estate. We upgraded the system 3 years ago, including the hidden cameras in the hallways. I stared at the screen. It was black and white night vision footage. The timestamp was from 5 hours ago. It showed my bedroom door opening and Isabella creeping inside, holding a plastic bottle. 5 minutes later, she exited, a malicious smirk plastered across her face. She destroyed the white dress, Nathaniel said quietly. I watched the live feed from my office. I was prepared to ruin the Sterling Foundation gala to fly to your house and drag you out of there myself. But then you walked out in red. You cut the strings of the puppet they tried to make you, and I knew it was finally time. My mouth went dry. You've been watching me. I've been guarding you, he corrected, his dark eyes flashing with an intensity that bordered on madness. For 3 years, I've watched your sister steal your accolades. I've watched your parents sideline you in favor of their fragile, illegitimate mistake. I was waiting for the day you finally snapped, Chloe, because the day you stopped playing the victim was the day I was going to claim you. He leaned in, taking the scotch glass from my trembling hand and setting it aside. His hands framed my face, his thumbs tracing my cheekbones. Liam Caldwell is a bottom feeder looking for a rich wife to save his drowning family. Isabella is a parasite. If they ever look at you again, I will erase them from this earth. Do you understand me? I looked into the eyes of a man obsessed. In my past life, I married a man who faked a smile while holding a knife behind his back. Now I was sitting with a man who held a knife in plain sight, promising to slaughter my enemies. Yes, I whispered. His lips crashed onto mine, searing, possessive, and absolute. It was the sealing of a dark, unbreakable pact. 2 months later, the social landscape of Manhattan had been entirely rewritten. My sudden, highly publicized engagement to Nathaniel Sterling had sent shockwaves through the elite circles. My parents, suddenly realizing I was their golden ticket to the Sterling Empire, tried to fawn over me. I iced them out entirely. Isabella, however, was like a cornered rat. With her sights on Nathaniel shattered, and my new untouchable status blinding her with jealousy, she grew desperate. She needed to destroy me before the wedding. She turned to her old ally, the financially desperate Liam Caldwell. They thought they were being stealthy. They thought they could outsmart the devil himself. The trap was set for the highly anticipated winter solstice charity auction at the Plaza Hotel. It was to be our first major public appearance as an officially engaged couple. I wore a backless emerald gown, the massive, flawless diamond on my left ring finger catching the light of 1,000 chandeliers. Nathaniel never left my side, his hand resting a possessive, heavy weight on the bare skin of my lower back. As the evening peaked, the auctioneer announced a special video presentation highlighting the charity's achievements. The lights dimmed. The massive projector screen lowered at the front of the ballroom. I felt a slight tightening of Nathaniel's grip on my waist. I glanced up at him. His jaw was set, his eyes fixed on the screen with cold anticipation. "Showtime," he murmured against my ear. In Isabella's plan, this was the moment the charity video was supposed to cut to doctored, highly compromising photos of me entering a hotel room with Bradley Henderson, a notorious, scandal-ridden socialite. She and Liam had paid a private investigator, Michael D. Evans, a hefty sum to stage the photos using a body double wearing my exact red gala dress. They intended to humiliate me, force Nathaniel to break the engagement to save his reputation, and leave me ruined. The screen flickered to life, but it wasn't the charity logo. It was a dimly lit, high-definition video of a booth at a secluded speakeasy in Tribeca. A collective murmur of confusion rippled through the hundreds of guests. Then, the audio kicked in, crystal clear and booming through the plaza's state-of-the-art sound system. "I don't care how much Michael Evans wants for the Photoshop work, Liam. Just pay him." Isabella's voice, shrill and frantic, echoed off the gilded ceiling. The camera angle shifted, perfectly capturing Isabella's face, contorted with spite, and Liam Caldwell, looking sweaty and panicked. "I can't afford it, Izzy," Liam's voice shot back. "Crestview Holdings is under audit. If Nathaniel Sterling tips off the SEC about the offshore accounts, my father goes to federal prison. We need to leak these photos to Page 6 tonight. Once Sterling dumps her, the Kensington money will flow back to you, and you can bail me out." The ballroom erupted. Gasps, shrieks, and the frantic clicking of cell phone cameras filled the air. I looked over to where Isabella and Liam were standing near the ice sculpture. Liam was entirely frozen, his face the color of wet ash. Isabella was shaking her head violently, her hands covering her mouth, letting out a high-pitched, wailing sound of absolute, unadulterated terror. The video on the screen kept playing, exposing every single venomous detail of their plot, right down to Isabella admitting she purposely pushed our father's prize antique vase down the stairs 5 years ago and blamed it on me. "Turn it off!" Isabella screamed, lunging toward the audiovisual table. "It's a deep fake! It's a lie!" But it was too late. The damage was catastrophic. Nathaniel raised a single hand. Immediately, a dozen men in sharp black suits, his private security detail, stepped out from the shadows of the ballroom, forming a physical barrier around us, while 2 officers from the NYPD, accompanied by a man in a sharp suit wielding an SEC badge, approached Liam Caldwell. "Liam Caldwell," the SEC agent said loudly, his voice carrying over the chaos, "you are under arrest for securities fraud, wire fraud, and grand larceny." Liam didn't even fight as they cuffed him. He just stared at me, his eyes wide with the realization that the meek girl he thought he could manipulate had engineered his total destruction. I looked right back at him, feeling the final, lingering shadow of the knife wound fade from my soul. Rotten hell, I thought. As Liam was dragged out, Isabella collapsed to her knees in the center of the ballroom, surrounded by the disgusted glares of the people she had spent her life trying to impress. Even our parents had physically backed away from her, realizing the radioactive nature of her ruined reputation. Nathaniel turned me to face him, entirely ignoring the pandemonium he had orchestrated. The flashing cameras and screaming socialites were nothing but background noise. "They're gone, Chloe," he said, his dark eyes burning with that familiar, terrifying obsession. "There is no one left to hurt you. There is no one left to steal from you. There is only me." I reached up, tracing the sharp line of his jaw. He was a monster, a ruthless, calculating architect of ruin. But he was my monster. In my past life, I died trying to be an angel for demons. In this life, I would gladly rule hell beside the devil who loved me. "Only you, Nathaniel," I whispered, leaning up to capture his lips. As we kissed, the flashes of the paparazzi immortalized the moment. The ruined sister on the floor, the disgraced heir in handcuffs, and the reborn woman, wrapped securely in the arms of the most dangerous man in New York. I had lost my life once, but I had returned to claim a throne they never saw coming. And that is how you rewrite history. Chloe didn't just survive her second chance. She teamed up with a billionaire whose red flag obsession turned out to be the ultimate green flag for revenge. Isabella and Liam lost absolutely everything in the most public, humiliating way possible. If you loved watching this ruthless takedown and want more insane, revenge-filled Reborn stories, hit that like button right now. Share this with your friends who love a dark romance. And make sure to subscribe so you never miss a plot twist. Let us know in the comments, would you have forgiven Isabella, or did she get exactly what she deserved?